All right, welcome back to Technical Writing Uncensored. I am here with Carl Isaac, a technical documentation manager in Stuttgart, Germany. Hey, Carl, thanks for joining me.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So, how did you get into technical writing?
I actually started my professional life as a translator back in the day. So I studied German and translation,
Mhm.
and I moved to Stuttgart about 20 years ago now to start working at Lexis as a translator. I was translating software documentation for SAP from German to English. This is back in the day when SAP developed all of their content in German. And at some point, they decided to switch their development language from German into English. And so the job of translating became the job of proofreading pretty much overnight.
Hmm.
And yeah, I didn't find that as fun, shall we say. I kind of learned that I wanted to start creating content instead of just improving other people's content. And as it happened, SAP approached us as a language services provider at the time. And well, at the time, we're still a language services provider to them. And they basically said, hey, like we need technical writers to create this content in English. Do you have anybody who's interested? And so I put my hand up, and that's how I kind of fell into the world of technical writing.
Yep, falling into it like so many of us.
Yeah. There's like they think there are two tracks, right? There are people that studied, and there are people who discovered it.
Yep.
So-
So, what I find very interesting is you've been with the same company for 20 years. That seems just unheard of to me. Please tell me about
I,
that. How?
you're making me feel really old. um, yeah, I mean, no, I've been here a long time. Like I said, I moved to Germany. I guess I missed the plane home. You know. No, but I mean, like professionally, I think what's kept me here is like, yeah, I've been here 20 years, but it's not like I've been doing the same job for 20 years. I started off very much, boots on the ground, doing operational stuff, translating, and then later tech docs.
Mhm.
Um, and then I've moved, I've kind of grown with the company, if you like. I moved into more of a management and consulting role.
Mhm.
Um, Yeah, and what I like about, working here at Lexis is that we're quite a small company, and so if you've got an idea, you want to try something out, you can just do it. You don't have to go through like three layers of management approval to get budget and that kind of thing. You can just run with it and see what works and what doesn't work.
You're
Um,
lucky.
yeah, yeah, very lucky in that way. And yeah, and I guess because we're a service provider, the work that we do is also very varied. So we can be doing
Mhm.
a project about, the banking system in Brazil one day, and then the utilities industry in Slovakia the next day. Um, and so there's that variety is also the things that I really appreciate about being here.
So, your role has you managing a team and working with multiple clients. So, what does your day to day look like?
Well, it always starts with coffee, that's for sure.
Heathen, I drink tea.
I know. Well, I'm British, as you can hear from my accent. So
Wait, what? How
I
can you be
should.
British and drinking coffee?
Well, I do start the day with a cup of tea at home, but my working day always starts with a coffee.
You
Coffee's
have to keep up appearances with the Germans.
right,
Don't
exactly.
seem too British. Gotta
No,
fit in.
absolutely not. Got to fit in. Well, I have been here long enough. I am a German as well, so
Fair
um,
enough.
yeah. Um, so no, cup of coffee, and then it's really, I'd say working with my team. I think there's 14 of us now on my team. Talking to clients, and I also, I still like to get down in the weeds and do
Hmm.
some tech docs myself. Um, so I always have like a one-on-one with every team member on a regular basis, and we get together, have a team meeting every couple of weeks, which is great because that's where we, learn what everybody's kind of project everybody's working on, and you can learn from each other, support each other. Um, and then, yeah, talking to clients, figuring out what their requirements are, what their needs are, what problems they're trying to solve. And then, like I say, getting down and actually getting my hands dirty and doing some actual tech docs. So I wouldn't say I have like a
Mhm.
typical day, but every day is some kind of combination of those three things.
That's cool. Yeah, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
communication, which makes sense. So, when you intake a client, what does that look like? What questions do you ask?
Um, so we always start with like an introductory, getting to know you call,
Hmm.
um, to work out, who they are, what their problems are, why are they coming to us, their docs. Um, and then that's not really about documentation. That's really about getting a feel for, the working relationship, if you like. Um, and then after that, we'll really try and start to scope the project. So you get clients that come to you, they've got a very specific idea of what they want. They might have worked with tech doc companies in the past, or even have their own in-house tech writers. So they'll come with a very clear ask, um,
Hmm.
which is
So
great when that
that
happens.
companies with tech writers ask you hire you guys? Like for what?
Sometimes, yeah, for like extra support, or if
Okay.
it's like one-off projects, like side projects, or just consultancy work, if they want
Hmm.
advice. So yeah. Um, and then, of course, the flip side is you get clients that come to you and they say, we need a user guide, and
Hmm.
and we need it by June. We need it yesterday. And and those are a little
We've
bit
been
more
building this
challenging, right?
product and we just realized that we need docs and it
We
releases
need
next
some docs.
week.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. You have those clients as well, right? Um,
Oh, or the ones who don't know
yeah.
what they need, but think they know what they
Hmm.
need. So you have to
Yes,
gently educate them about what they actually need.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. And I think, that's where it gets interesting, shall we say?
Hmm.
Because you can't just say like, well, how many pages do you want? Like we'll write 40 pages for your user guide. You have to then start asking like those really exploratory questions, like, how many business processes do you have? How complex are they? Do you want edge cases documented or just the standard stuff? How much help do you already have in your software itself, right? It's built in. Do you have any legacy content that we can refer to, reuse? All of those questions that you really need to find the answers to, so that you can actually scope the project.
So, how are you incorporating LLMs and other tools into your workflow, like Cloud Code, skills, anything like that?
Yeah, we're using LLMs in a fairly practical way, I'd say. So besides all of the regular quality checks, spelling, grammar, things like that, we do use it a lot to, I don't want to say replace the developers or the engineers, but we work with clients across different time zones, right? So
Hmm.
it's not always possible to talk to a developer if they're in New Zealand, China. Um, um, so it's great to be able to take code snippets and just feed that into the LLM and, get the LLM to explain what the code does in the same way that the developer might. So then
Yeah,
you've
I
got
think of it as my
something.
pocket SME.
Yes.
I
So
mean,
yeah.
so aside from using it as a pocket SME, anything else that you think of as a
Hmm.
practical?
I mean, personally, I use it a lot for research.
Hmm.
Um, So, like I said, working as a service provider, you have to be able to pick up different projects or different areas, if you like, quite quickly. And I think that's where an LLM can be very, very helpful, just
Yeah.
to help you get up to speed with
Assuming it
things.
doesn't hallucinate, but I think it's pretty solid on, kind of basic stuff, especially if it's,
Hmm.
not like heart surgery or something.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. No, I wouldn't want to leave heart surgery or any kind of surgery for that matter to an LLM.
No.
Um,
So what
yeah.
has worked? Oh, please continue.
Sorry. No, I was going to say that like the other thing that we've started to do as well is build up our prompt library in-house.
Hmm.
So I've a couple of colleagues that are responsible for managing that, and they've put together a list of prompts for the rest of the team. And everybody gets to iterate over it and try them out with different models,
Hmm.
and maybe change the phrasing, the structure of the prompt, see what works, what doesn't work. And then we've logged all of that, so that we can,
How
hopefully
do you
we'll have
manage the
some good prompts.
prompts? Like, where do you keep them?
We have them in a Microsoft list. Um,
Hmm.
so it's just a simple list, with columns for, obviously the prompt text, which model we used it with, when we used it, and then we rank
Interesting.
the output, and then people can take that and run it through the same model and see if they get a similar output, and then we can rank
Hmm.
them. This worked well, this didn't work well.
Can you share what tasks you have common prompts for?
We have prompts. I'm trying to think now off the top of my head. So we do a lot of work with Ditta. So we have some prompts
Hmm.
that will, write a short description for you. Um, we have prompts that refactor content. So one of the clients we're working for now, their project involves taking a lot of legacy content that's written in Word or on SharePoint and converting that into Markdown. So we have an LLM prompt that will do that for you. Um, yeah,
So,
and other prompts as well.
mhm. Yeah. So that's kind of what worked well. Anything else that has worked particularly well aside from using it as a pocket SME and building a prompt library?
Um, I mean, we're still very much at the beginning of our um, experiments, if you like, with
Hmm.
LLMs. One thing that we're looking into is seeing how we can automate the publishing process, um, with LLMs and using it multilingually, like.
Mm.
Um,
For
so we get
localization?
sort of localization, exactly. So we
Mhm.
create the idea is, you create your content, then you push it to your repository. The LLM will localize it and then publish everything. Um,
I hope you will check it. I've worked with
yes,
one
that's the.
localization vendor that has automated everything. And so we were getting translations back that had facilities instead of installation guide, so
Oh,
facilities
okay.
guide,
Yeah, no,
and
that's the.
earring when it was
Hmm.
something completely different. Just
Yeah, yeah, no, of course, it's
wacky stuff.
absolutely essential that that all that stuff gets checked.
Oh, the
Um,
worst part was that it would change it without notifying us. Have you ever had your documentation change when you're not looking? Absolutely maddening.
yeah, I can. Yeah, and when the LLM changed that, or how did that
The
happen?
localization vendor processes
Hmm.
would run, and then like yeah, it was bad.
Yeah, yeah, but no, it's like, yeah, it's absolutely essential to check anything that an LLM is doing, right?
Hmm.
It's like you said, they can hallucinate really, really easily. Um, I had that actually just last week. I was working on when I said, I like to get my hands dirty.
Hmm.
Um, I was working on a project that it's for the utilities industry here in Germany, and we have a list of business processes, like hundreds of business processes. And I gave them to an LLM, and I said to the LLM, I need you to extract the business processes that meet certain criteria. And sure enough, it started to give me a list, like the first sort of 10, 20 were all fine. But then I scanned further down the list and I realized that there were, I'm not claiming I know all 100 processes that we have, but some of them just were a little bit off, you know.
Mhm.
Um, and sure enough, the LLM had started to hallucinate, and it was just inventing processes that just didn't exist, but they sounded plausible, you know.
Yep, it lies with great confidence.
Yeah, but what really surprised me about that was that the source that I'd given it was structured XML, and it still hallucinated.
Whoa. Yeah,
Mm.
that of all the things that you'd think would
Hmm.
be easy to consume.
Yeah, yeah, I was very, very surprised. But every now and again, something like that happens.
Hmm.
Again, a few weeks ago, I asked the LLM to translate something for me into German, and it got like the genders of the nouns wrong, you know, to the point where I was reading it and I started second guessing myself, and I went to look up the gender of this noun and sure enough, the LLM
Yeah.
got it wrong. And I thought, well, that's, quite a
Yeah.
basic. It's not basic
People,
at all when you get down into the nitty gritty of it. It's really complicated. But yeah, that's the kind of thing you expect the LLM to get right.
well, people forget that LLMs are still basically autocomplete. They're not drawing from a database or
Hmm.
something. They're just choosing the
Hmm.
next
The next,
most likely word.
the next probable word. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not looking
Yeah.
it up in a dictionary
Hmm.
necessarily.
Yeah.
You don't know where it's coming from.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah. But no, I was very surprised by that.
yeah, that's wild.
Mm.
So, uh, do you think we should use LLMs for first drafts? That's a discussion
Mhm.
that's come up a few times for me in the past couple of weeks. Whether to use the
E-
LLM for a first draft or write the first draft yourself so that you get that knowledge and know that it's
Mhm.
starting from a good point, and then use the
Yeah.
LLM to review and iterate.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm definitely a fan of not using LLMs for the first draft because for me, writing the first draft yourself is part of the learning process. Um, you know, I often find myself just writing down everything that I know about a subject,
Hmm.
and then I'll use the LLM to refine it. Um, but I think if you use the LLM for the first draft, there are I see two main issues there. First, that we just discussed, is that it can very easily hallucinate. And if you really don't know your subject area that well, for whatever reason, it's very easy just to take that first draft as gospel. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
I
And like the really bad, tech writers would just throw that out there, publish it and be done with it, right? Which is the worst you could do. Um,
yeah I was had to use LLMs to write a first draft at a previous place of employment,
uh-huh.
and I I agreed that okay, I'll do this, but I'm going to run everything past my engineers to
Mm-hmm.
make sure it's right. And it's a good thing I did, because some of
Mm-hmm.
the stuff that came out of there looked reasonable to me. The engineer was like, "Diana, where did you get this sentence?
Mm-hmm.
Because it
Yeah.
is complete nonsense."
It's nonsense, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, which part? It seemed like it made sense
Mm-hmm.
to me. And
Yeah,
then he
yeah.
gave me an explanation that I didn't understand, which is probably why the original made sense to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So I think, yeah, if you become over reliant then on the, whatever the LLM produces as its first draft, and either it's wrong or it's kind of right, but then,
just
it's
a little
it's you
bit
kind of,
off.
yeah, but then, I think it's harder to get away from it then.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, so my approach is, like I say, use the LLM by all means. I think LLMs are great. I'm a big fan. I'm maybe in a minority in the tech writing world, but I'm a big fan of AI and LLMs. Um, but I think they have their place, and writing first drafts for me is not it. Use them for your research, use them to refine your content, but write the first draft yourself.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they are a useful tool, but they need some definite guardrails,
Hmm.
and we need to really understand how best to use the tool. The
Yeah.
research that people are doing right now is just fascinating, and I'm loving it.
Hmm. Yeah. 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 So,
But so switching from robot minions to humans, where do you think tech writers fit in the software workflow and the in workflows in general? So we've talked about where the LLMs fit, but where do writers
hmm.
fit?
Um, well, yeah, anybody who's read my LinkedIn posts will know that I'm a big fan of bringing tech writers in from day one. You know, it unfortunately doesn't happen um, as often as it should. Like, we said you have the clients that come to you and say, "We've developed our software and we've only just realized we need some documentation." Um, But I think the earlier you bring a tech writer into your project, the more value they add, right? They're there to really advocate for the user. Um, they'll spot
Absolutely.
problems, they'll spot inconsistencies, and they'll flag those things up before they become problems for the end user, right? I think if you bring somebody in um, too late, they document problems, and if you bring them in early, they solve them.
Do you have
That's
any examples of that?
um I have an example. A colleague of mine, actually, she was working on a project, and the development teams had used the term order change everywhere on the
Hmm.
UI, in
Hmm.
their gyras. They kept talking about order change, um, which is really problematic, right? As a term,
Yeah, I mean, I
because
can
you've
think of
got.
at least two different ways to interpret that phrase.
Well, I mean, you've got two words that can be both a noun and a verb, right? So if you say, and there are different types of orders, even, there are
Yeah.
purchase orders, there are manufacturing orders, there's order in the sense of a sequence, um, you know, um, and then the change, is it a modification? I think the area was actually retail as well. So it could be change as in cash, small change. Um,
Oof.
so
Yeah.
there's a plethora of different meanings for that. And then if you think about, if that had stayed on the UI and gone into translation, like who knows what would have come back, you know. But no, because she was brought in at an early stage, and she also speaks German as well. She could flag that up and go, "Hey guys, like, what exactly do you mean when you say order change?" And I
Yeah.
forget what they settled on in the end, but they did end up finding a term that meant what it said on the tin.
I was chatting with a translator when I was working at a trucking company who one of the parts was an orifice.
Oh,
And she was like,
I,
can we call this something else? Because
hmm.
everything in the language I'm translating it to, it comes across really dirty. And
Hmm.
eventually she just made an executive decision that she was going to call
Yeah,
it something less profane.
I think that's a wise decision.
Because the engineer was like, what? I don't see the problem. It's an orifice.
Yeah. So
Oh God,
yeah, go and
I
go
bet
and
you have lots of
do a
stories.
Google, go and do a Google image search on that one and
Oh,
see what comes back.
oh, I think this was before Google Image, but yeah.
Okay. Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, oh man, that's gonna live rent free in my brain for a while. Thanks, thanks.
My favorite story about again, this is another, I guess, a cautionary tale. Like, when they didn't bring in a tech writer, a friend of mine told me that the company he was working for at the time, they had some problem with their system. The system had gone down, And when somebody went to log on, or tried to log on to it, they got an error message that said, the system is currently unavailable. Our developers are hardly working on it. Um, which, of course, they meant hard at work on it, right? And you can see English grammar at work there, like taking the adjective, sticking on the ly to make the adverb. But unfortunately, completely changed the meaning. And when that's your only contact point as a user, like, the kind of words you use matter, right?
Yeah. A few years ago at Write the Doc, someone was put giving examples of bad UI text, and one of
Mm-hmm.
them was kill widows and orphans. They meant widows and orphans in the sense of grammar, the leftover words at the
Uh-huh.
end of the
Okay.
and lines at the end of a page.
Uh-huh.
But
Yeah.
taken out of context,
Yeah, that could be
that was a little bit disquieting
problematic, as we
option
say.
there. It's like, do I
Mm-hmm.
really want
Yeah.
to click that checkbox? I feel bad
I
if I
feel
do.
bad. Yeah. Oh man.
Oh, what else you got, man?
The other thing that springs to mind was I was logging onto my banking software
Hmm.
a couple of months ago, and I must have mistyped the password or something. And
Okay.
instead of, incorrect password, please try again, or whatever you might expect, I got a big red error message that said your password must meet regular expression, and then it listed the regular expression, like, which was just gobbledygook, right? To anybody that's not
Yeah. No, no, normal people
not
aren't going to
tech
know what that
minded. Normal people
is.
don't. Yes, exactly. Um, yeah, it was not good.
Yeah. No, not at all.
Hmm.
Well, we could probably go on like that for a while, but
We could. I'm sure we could sit here for hours and just swap anecdotes.
oh, well, what advice do you have for technical writers dealing with this awful, awful job market?
Um, I'm not convinced the job market is awful, awful, to be
Really?
honest.
That
No.
is in the US.
Really? Okay. I seem to be I get mails a lot, almost every day, people looking for tech writers. Um, maybe you need to move to Europe.
Maybe.
But no, I think, advice I have, I mean, I think, the tech writing um, industry, if you like, is changing, especially with AI, of course. Um, and I think, but I'm not one of these doom and gloom people that think, oh my God, the robots are going to take our jobs. In fact, I think if anything, it's going to highlight the kind of work that we do, right? Because AI is fed by the content that we produce, right? Structured content, structured authoring. And I think that is going to become more important. At
Hmm.
the same time, it will show up bad documentation practices, and they will hopefully fall by the wayside. Um, but no, I'm excited for what's to come. And so, if I've got advice for anybody, I would say, don't be scared of the technology. Be curious, experiment with it, and learn just enough to be dangerous.
That is a great way to end this. Anything else that you want to add?
No, all good. Thank you. Just to say thanks for having me. It's been fun to talk to you.
Well, thanks for being here, Carl. And everyone, thank you for joining us on Technical Writing Uncensored. If you enjoyed this content, please like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, maybe leave me a comment. It really helps me out with the algorithm. And we will see you next time on Technical Writing Uncensored. Bye now.